Like my kids will come up to me and give me ideas. They'll say, "Hey, why don't you write about X, Y, or Z?" Or like, we went to Disney. This is a good tie-in. I was at a point where about a week or two ago, I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to write next? And my 12-year-old daughter said, "Have you written about our trip to Disney?" And I went, "Well, no. I mean, we just went to Disney." She said, "You didn't write about the scavenger hunt that y'all showed us how we were going and everything?" And I was like, "Oh, that is a good idea." So that one post turned into a 4-parter because it kept leading to something else. So what I would give advice is, number one, don't do it in a silo, because you, in my opinion, you are only as good as the people around you.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the podcast where we bring on authors and writers, and you get to hear their story, get to meet great people. You know, like meeting great people is the best thing about podcasting. And my guest today and I both have a love for all things 80s and great movies, and we're dads, and we love podcasting, and on and on and on. So it's like interviewing an old friend, which is great. And Maury's here on the show. I'm so excited to have him here. We talk about his author journey and so much more. Maury, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Glad to have you back. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good.
Good. Tell everybody, Maury, where are you in this big world of ours?
I currently live in southern Tennessee in the southeast United States.
There you go. And what do you love the most about Tennessee? Come
on. What do I love the most about Tennessee? I love the people. I've always lived here. I think people who move here are nicely caught off guard. Everyone around here, usually native Tennesseans, are always willing to help. Like I grew up where if you saw somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road, you stopped and helped them. It didn't matter if you knew them or not. That's just what you did. And a lot of people who move in will say, everybody is so genuinely nice. And it's just, we take care of each other. And I think that's what I like the most about it.
Yeah, well, I think that's something we need more of. I think no matter where you live, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like it. Talk a little bit about your journey as an author. It's kind of top of mind for you right now. You did mention before we record, you're kind of in this limbo stage as an author and as a writer. But what is so exciting for you around the idea of writing and sharing your words with the world? How did this all start for you?
I guess, the passion for writing. I'll be honest, English was not my favorite subject in school. I was more of a history person. I loved social studies. That was my favorite, and business and things like that. But after high school, I got a job at a newspaper here locally, writing. I was the newspaper reporter. I was the only newspaper reporter. And I covered the civil meetings and county commissions, local government, things like that. So I started doing that, and I enjoyed it. And my editor started pushing me to do more. Instead of just writing who, what, where, when, how, I started writing like editorials and stuff, and that was really fun. Then on a whim one time, I reached out to the WWF back then. They were coming to Nashville, and I was like, I'm going to see if I can interview somebody. And I sent them an email. It would never happen today, as big as they are. But I did actually get to interview. I got to go to Nashville and meet a wrestler before the event. I got to interview him. That was really cool. So then I started writing devotionals for the same local newspaper. That turned into it a thing I really liked. Then, ironically, years later, I became an English teacher, and writing was really something I enjoyed teaching my students, because they didn't like it just like I didn't, but I painted it in a way to say, this is putting your thoughts on paper. Because a lot of times I think as a writer, we as humans, you don't really know what's going on in someone else's head. But when you're writing, you essentially are opening up a window into your head. And I like the little nuances, like with me being a sarcastic person, trying to work that in to writing in a way where it's funny and it doesn't come off as snarky, but more funny, I guess.
Can I ask who the wrestler was that you interviewed?
Her name was Ivory. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember Ivory. She was one of the first like big female wrestlers that she had she was like one of the first champions and stuff. I will say, not knocking her, but when I interviewed her, a lot of the answers I was getting was very scripted.
Okay.
So I would ask a question and then she would answer it and I would write it down. But in the back of my head, as I was doing it, I was going, she's giving you stock answers.
Yeah.
And it was fine because I got free tickets to Raw and I was like, I'm not going to say a word. I'm cool with this. But yeah, it was Ivory. I was supposed to actually interview, who was it? I was supposed to interview the Dudley Boys.
Oh.
So I was really excited about that. And then when I got there, they said it's Ivory. And I was like, I was still happy, but I was like, I was kind of wanting to interview the Dudley Boys. But yeah, that was when I was like, oh, okay, I can do something with this writing. So, yep, it was Ivory.
I remember going to see the WWF in Buffalo, New York, and it was back to back to back to back. They were passing each other to the ring for the next match, and we were on our feet cheering and all this stuff. And it was like the coolest thing as a kid to be sitting there seeing those superstars on TV in real life. And you're just like, oh my gosh, that's actually the person, right? They're actually humans. Just the abilities they have. I know people are like wrestling, blah, blah, blah. But these are very skilled people in what they do, right? And characters, too, on top of it. Not only can they do something physically, but they had to actually show up in that persona and gravitas, and they had to like create a whole brand as well, right?
Yeah, and I always said and they had to do it like on the fly,
right?
Like if you put up they would put a mic in their hand. There was no teleprompters. Nope. I mean, it was all up here, and that's funny. Like I completely forgot about this, but also in my writing background, speaking of wrestling. A friend and I wrote for a local wrestling organization near where we lived. We were the ones who were in the back writing like what was going to happen. Like this person's going to win and stuff. And it was fun. But that was awesome as a writer because it could change. Like we had one person that wanted to be a bad guy, but every time he would go out, they would cheer him because he was, like you said, he was good on the mic. Yeah. He could wrestle really well. And we said, we're going to have to make you a good guy. They're not going to boo you. And he said, oh, well, okay. Well, the next time we wrote something to where he came out and turned into a good guy and the roof blew off the place.
Right.
So, I mean, but yeah, writing that goes, completely forgot about that. But yeah, that was another of my little, I guess, what is it? Feather in my cap for writing. Yeah, I completely forgot I did that. That didn't last that long.
I like the smile on your face as that memory came back to you. That's really cool. I like that.
That was funny. That was funny. I got to hit somebody with a cookie sheet. It was hilarious. That was great. Good times.
There you go. So what today is the thing that keeps you writing? Why are you still interested to continue this journey as a writer?
I guess it's been about a little over a month ago. I write for my church. We write. Our church is a larger one, so we do a lot of our own media. Like in Tennessee, for instance, you might go if your church is doing like a vacation Bible school. They would go purchase the curriculum and all that. Yep. Well, our church is large. So we don't do that. We do our own. Yeah. So a lot of times with the sermon series, we'll have a weekly devotional, and I write the weekly devotionals for our church. So I was doing that, and just to be honest and transparent with everybody, I was looking at a way for like a side hustle and a way to possibly make a little side money from my full-time job.
Yeah.
So I started writing again with Substack because my brother does it on Substack, and then I'd done some research, and they was like, this was a good thing right now. So I started writing about fatherhood, and I have 4 kids. Ages, I gotta think, I got 4 of them. 16, 12, 10, and 7.
Wow.
So I write about being a father. I've got 2 boys and 2 girls, so I can speak to both sides. My wife and I have been married on Tuesday. I mean, tomorrow's Monday. Yeah, Tuesday. On Tuesday, we'll be married for 19 years.
Wow.
And we've been together for 25. So I feel as though I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I must be doing something right. She's still here. So I write about marriage. And then I just write about, there's some funny things I like to write because, like I said earlier about opening up a window into your head, I am sarcastic. People close to me think I'm funny. Other people might not so much, but hey, but somebody I work with, they call me at work. They say, when we have lull times, when we have meetings, they'll say, Maury, do you have a story? Because I have so many.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them a story, and somebody I work with said, you need to write these down. And I had pigeonholed myself so much in the devotional aspect
Right.
that I was telling myself, nobody wants to hear these stories. I think they're funny. My family thinks they're funny, but nobody else is going to care. So I wrote 1 or 2, and then I got some positive feedback from social media and whatnot. And I've reached out to some people and shared the writings. So I think right now I am just at a place where I'm more open to share what's in my head as far as things I've learned, things I've made mistakes on, and then just frankly funny stories that people don't believe really happened, but they did.
For an author that's maybe early days of starting their journey writing, talk about setting up a Substack, the benefits for them on doing that. What do you think?
I like it. Substack is very user friendly.
Yeah.
It's like any other social media type thing. There's a lot of weeds in it to where, like right now, just shooting straight, there's a lot of people that are upset from when I've done research and stuff. There's a lot of people that's been upset that a lot of it seemed like Substack was more of a grassroots type thing, like people like me who aren't really known, but it's a place for us to put our works and people to read. Well, it seems that a lot of well-known authors are coming over to Substack and creating subscription accounts.
Okay.
And from the research I've done, that is not sitting well with some people because it seems like, okay, they're coming over here and they're going to oversaturate or something like that. But as far as advice I would give, Substack is really, what I like about it is it's super easy to post something. You can schedule your post. Like currently right now, I'm blessed enough to have, the goal was to have a weekly column every Thursday. I think every Thursday morning it gets posted. And I've got one scheduled until past January.
Nice.
Just because, like going back to advice, if I have an idea, I write it.
Right.
I've got a Post-it note. I've got a pad of paper next to the side of my bed. If I wake up at 1:00 in the morning with an idea, I write it down. Currently, there are 3 crummy ideas on that notepad, but I wrote them down anyway.
Yeah.
Because one of them triggered a better idea.
Right.
So I did that. But I would highly suggest Substack is really easy to share. It will give you once you write it and post it, Substack will email you like images for your Instagram reel or stories or things like that. So I like the fact that it's free. It's a one-stop shop, and it does all that for me. And it also gives you stats and lets you know how many people are opening it, how many people are viewing it. And I've made a lot of good contacts with other writers on Substack that are writing similar content. So I would highly advise Substack.
And then it compared to like a traditional social media platform like Facebook, Substack is just different, right?
Yes, Substack is more. I would say like Substack has something called Notes, which is it looks like a similar a Facebook dashboard. But what I like about Substack is when you're on Facebook, Facebook has a lot of noise, whereas Substack is writers.
Yeah.
And what I like about it too is you can look at the dashboard on Substack and you can kind of tell who's really into it and who's not really into it. Like there's a lot of posts on Substack that is just drop your blog and let me know what it's like. There's tons of those. And at me being naive, I was like, oh, and I would comment on that and drop my link. But then it got to the point where I was like, there's nobody reading those. And that's just I don't want to say it's giving me a false hope, but it was giving me more stuff to do. And I didn't want more stuff to do. So Substack, what I've liked about it is also you can recommend, like granted he's my brother, but he recommends when people subscribe to his blog, they get an additional email saying Andrew recommends Maury's blog, and nothing might come of it. And I'm not like, by no means, I'm not making any money right now, but it's cathartic right now, getting everything, being able to write. And like I said, I like reading. I mean, and I don't know any authors. I'm sure other authors do this. They might not admit it. I like reading my own stuff and going, oh man, that's good. I mean, and it helps me get my thoughts out on paper in a natural, organized way, rather than how it is in my head with a bunch of boxes with different names on it and different stories and stuff.
Right. And getting them off of those little sticky notes by the bed.
Yes.
Getting them out there into the world, right? Yeah, it's good. Now, where is the path from writing in Substack to being more published in a book in your hand where people can buy it? Kind of what's the path between those two things?
That's a good question. Right now, like, and it's funny, the person I work with who said I need to write down the stories, she also says you could write a book. And that, as a writer, that is probably the most intimidating thing next to a blank screen.
Right.
The book idea, I've had more than one person say, like, you should put all of these stories into one book. And it's funny because I think a lot of bloggers, that doesn't even cross your mind. That, oh, I could write a book. For instance, my brother, he does a lot of speaking, and he blogs. And somebody came up to him after he spoke somewhere and said, do you have any books? And he told me, he was like, I felt stupid because I was like, should I have books? And he's at the point where he's kind of thinking about, maybe I do need to do something. As far as me, right now, I would say for the first time, probably I could see myself writing a book later. I think right now I'm trying to, not to sound cliche, hone my craft. I don't know. I mean, when I was at the newspaper, my writing was horrible. I'm going to say it. I was writing news stories. It was very boring, I guess. I don't say boring. It wasn't detailed. And it's ironic because when I was an English teacher, kids would write for me and they would go, such and such happened for several reasons. And I'd always circle several reasons and give it back to them. And I'd say, what are the several reasons? Yeah. And they'd go, well, this and this and this. And I'd say, put that in there. Yeah. And that goes back. I say, I don't know what you're thinking. Right. And then as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, man, that's what I used to do. And now I'm like, okay, I need to be a little bit more detailed and try my best to put whatever memory or story that's in my head, put it on paper, because it paints a picture in someone else's head of what's going on. Like for me, for instance, a detail that pops up in my head. When you say the word baseball, I hear steel cleats walking on gravel and walking on concrete. I was not a good baseball player in high school, but when I was in Little League, I was not the worst kid on the team, but I wasn't the best. But that noise of steel cleats, to this day, I tell my son that is one of the coolest noises ever, because it sends me back to Little League and having fun and everything like that. But as a book, that's, I'm not as scared as I used to be, but a book would be something I don't want to knock my kids or anything, but I think writing a book would almost be bordering on having a kid, because a story is one thing, but when you do a book, like that's a story is putting a little of yourself out there.
Right.
A book, be it fiction or nonfiction, is like not opening a window into your head. It's almost like taking the roof off.
There's some permanence to it, right? It's an actual physical thing where it's printed and those words are in the book and it's done. I like it for a legacy thing for my family. When I think about it that way, right? It's anybody can write a book. People are like, well, anybody can do it, but to write a good book. And the thing about when I talk to you, Maury, you have so much content between everything that you do and how you show up in the world. There's just so many pieces of you in different forms. Combining them and bringing them into something like a book is something I think would honor and put you into more places that all of these separate places on their own may not reach that individual person, right? Throwing them together in a book format just creates one more opportunity for somebody to fall in love with you. One thing I have my Dad's Space podcast. I have 182 episodes for this show. And I'm proud of every episode with my guests, my solo episodes, all that. So what I'm doing, I'm just pulling my transcriptions from 182 episodes and categorizing the topics, and then thinking about how can I take what I've already said through a microphone, rework it into a format of a book so that it complements the podcast and puts me into another opportunity as an author, potentially in the future, to talk to dads and point them back to the podcast and make it a whole well-rounded offering where it's just not the podcast. And if you're not a podcast listener, you may never find out about it. But a book might be that open door, right, to help. So with all of the things you're doing, is that something where you can maybe try to distill down all of these different pieces of you and make a book out of that?
Yeah, and looking at it now, like I said, and it's weird because like you kind of made a face when I said, in a positive way, when I said, I've got blog posts written until January.
Right, yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, that's not enough because I am notorious for, I don't want to say dropping the ball, but I am notorious for doing something for a minute and then being like, okay, well, this isn't going anywhere. I quit. And it's not so much I quit. It's just, it's like you said, I do not, my wife fusses at me so much because I do not have a bucket list. I do not have a list of things that I have to get done. If I died today and I went to heaven and St. Peter, as the thing says, are you okay with your life? It'll be like, yeah, I'm good. I mean, it's like, there's nothing. We went to Ireland about a little over a month ago. That probably was like the only bucket list thing I had. And Ireland is great. If you've never been, I highly suggest going. It's awesome. It's like Tennessee. It's friendly people and everything. But I'm beginning the more, and you're not the only one that said it about all the stuff that I have in my head. And I've had people say like, have you ever thought about organizing? And I'm like, I'm just trying to keep my plate spinning right now. But I could see now, because I do have a pattern. My writing is about fatherhood a lot, because I mean I do have 4 kids. We thought we were going to have 2, maybe 3. 4 sounds like a lot, and it is sometimes. But like, and as far as like my writing is a lot of fatherhood, uh, things I've learned in my marriage, mixed in with some funny things from my childhood, where me and my mom and dad got divorced when I was 19, I guess. So I think when I got married, I took it seriously because I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. So my wife and I guess that's why we dated for 6 years. We wanted to make sure we were ready. But a lot of the stuff that I write about could easily be brought into a fatherhood or a marriage, or just anecdotal, funny stories. But yeah, I could see. I'll just say a book. A book is in the plans, but right now I'm trying to build the skeleton out, I guess you could say.
So you have a lot of content coming to you and through you, but at times we hit a wall, or we hit this weird part in our life where things aren't as smooth. It's not flowing. When that happens for you, how do you work through that?
That's I'd say, as an author, that's probably one of the most intimidating, when, because I think, at least for me, it writing has become more like when it rains, it pours. When all the when it's clicking, and you're just spitting stuff out, and you're like, oh, that's good, that's good. And then you wake up and you come to sit at your computer or your notepad or whatever it is that you're writing with, and your brain just looks like the old TVs that would go offline at night. And I know in America, we had like the national anthem would play at like 11 o'clock at night, and then it'd go, boom, and then that was it.
That's it.
Kids don't understand. Like, there was no TV. It was like, it's off. Like, it's black. There's nothing. And I think a lot of times, like here recently, I've been let's just say the river of writing has slowed, just because since middle of April, I have literally been using, and I've talked to you about this before, Chat GBT. I will sit with Chat GBT and just to help me organize all of my memories and ideas. I will tell Chat GBT, I've got a story idea. Can you save this? And then I will write it out what it is. And that was just clicking. And then now it's kind of slowed. But on the flip side of that, I've allowed people around me to know that I'm writing. So the people closest to me will say, hey, have you ever thought about writing about such and such? Because I would like just then when me and we were just talking, and the wrestling, writing the scripts, something just is like, oh my gosh. And then I'm sitting here thinking that would be a good idea for a little writing thing.
We are recording this. We are recording, so we have this as a memory.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. But I think, like, my kids will come up to me and give me ideas. They'll say, hey, why don't you write about X, Y, or Z? Or like, we went to Disney. This is a good tie-in. I was at a point where about a week or two ago, I was kind of like, okay, what am I going to write next? And my 12-year-old daughter said, have you written about our trip to Disney? And I went, well, no. I mean, we just went to Disney. And she said, you didn't write about the scavenger hunt that y'all showed us how we were going and everything? And I was like, oh, that is a good idea. So that one post turned into a 4-parter because it kept leading to something else. So what I would give advice is, number one, don't do it in a silo.
Right.
Because you, in my opinion, you are only as good as the people around you. So sharing it with people, the people closest to you are going to remember things maybe, or they might even just say, hey, have you ever thought about writing this? I've used social media for some of it, saying, hey, what is something you would want to learn about, or what's a mistake you made as a parent? And because I've written about mistakes. I mean, I've written about a lot of stuff, but I think what you do is just not to stop, because I think a lot of times we as humans get to a point and we're like, well, I can't think of anything else. I always think something's going to come up, but it's just, I say just write. I mean, think of something and just sit there and go, okay, I want to write about X, Y, or Z. And then I've even, no lie, I've walked around my block just thinking about stuff and going, oh, that'd be a good idea. And some of it doesn't happen. Some of it you write and you look at it and go, oh, that's awful. And then you delete it.
Yeah.
But some of it, I have written some, well, good. This is a good example. I had a article ready to go for this week that was about how my kids can't keep my house clean. How we have a step 5 problem in our house. And really quickly, it's like everything in our house takes 5 steps.
Okay.
And my kids stop at step 4.
Okay.
Everything. Like, they come in the house, they put everything by the front door. That's it. I'm not going to go put the backpack where it goes. I'm just going to stop. So then I got the bright idea, since in our neighborhood, I've won yard of the month. And my 12-year-old said, how do you do yard of the month? And I told her how I win yard of the month. And she said, oh, that's really cool. And then it hit me. I was like, why don't I do room of the month in the house?
Nice.
And I can give them a prize. So the article that I had written about step 5, I didn't toss it, but I moved it and I wrote a new article about the yard of the month idea. And I was writing it, and in my brain, I was like, well, the other one was just a waste of time now, because this, and I said, no, it wasn't a waste of time. It gave you an idea for another story. So I think a lot of times, just keep going. As an author, you are going to have days where your brain is just blank, but you are going to have days too where your brain's not going to turn off.
Yeah.
So just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, an author was on recently, and they said a quote around from Ray Bradbury, and the basic context of the quote was, write a short story or write something every week. Write at least one thing, and for you, that's you do that on the way to doing something else. But anyway, for all the rest of us, write one thing every week, and the chances of you writing 52 terrible things back to back, pretty slim.
Yep.
You're going to write something good. Like, it's going to happen just by you being in that creative space and doing the thing and writing and just keep doing it. Something's going to turn out. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to be terrible at all 52 things. Right. And it's good perspective. Right.
Very good.
Right? It just helps you to be in that space. And I think that creative people tend to be more creative. It's that motion. You're in the motion of doing something. And that's when the creativity seems to come and tap you on the shoulder more often, or you're more aware of it, where you might not be aware of it when you're not being so creative.
Well, and I think it's not to go into a dad space episode, but it's intention. It's being intentional.
Right.
There are days that if you have kids, you're going to just feel, I was having a bad day the other day. And I was on our deck and I was just sitting there I was off work and I was just trying to decompress, but I was sitting there and I had my head in my hands and I was just relaxing. And my 7-year-old boy came out and he patted me on the shoulder and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm good. It's just, I said, I had a bad day. And he hugged me and kissed me on top of the head and said, "I'm sorry." He said, "I hope it gets better." And I said, "Thanks." And I'm almost tearing up talking about it. But he walked back in and I was like, I said, I told myself, I said, "You got to get up." I said, "You're fine." I said, "Your day's over, but I said, and then I went back inside his house. I said, you want to go outside? I said, we went on a hike. I said, you want to go hike? And he was like, yeah. So we got our tennis shoes on and we drove to a park near us, and we walked for like an hour in the woods, and it was great. And I mean, and that goes back to, like you said about the ride. I've never heard that quote. That's the likelihood of you doing that many crummy. Yeah, I mean, right. it's just not going to happen. Yeah. And we all are going, if you're writing, there's going to be, and this is my thing that I've learned too. If you're writing, you might read something of yours and think it's not that good. And someone else might read it and it hits them right between the eyes. Right. And they go, oh my gosh, that was so good. And you're like, really? I mean, because I didn't think it was that good. But it goes, going back to my faith, you do things, if you're doing it for other people, which I think a lot of times with writing, there's a thin line between writing for yourself and writing for other people, because you're trying to get your thoughts out, and like people can relate to something in your life, just like I can read things other people have written. Speaking of like writing, like when I was in high school, the first book I remember reading as an assignment was Animal Farm. And the quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I have used that line with my kids so many times about things going on in the world and stuff. And they go, where did you hear that? And I go, from a book. And I mean, and that book was not written for me, but I took that out of that book. And I think a lot of times authors will sell themselves short thinking, well, I'm not doing anything and stuff. And you honestly don't know, because somebody might read something you've written and they just don't let you know. But you've probably, I think to piggyback off your quote, if you write every week for 52 weeks, you're going to hit home with at least one person.
Right.
And in my opinion, if it's one person, then it's one person.
Yeah. And if you are not using something like Substack or some kind of community, you're sharing your words kind of within a silo, and you're not getting feedback, you're not getting interaction, and you're not maybe as motivated to keep writing because there's nobody there holding you accountable, or you feel like you want to serve your community through your writing. So I do like the idea of a Substack or whatever to kind of be that excuse and reason to write when maybe you don't have the internal motivation that day. It's this, your son coming out to you on the porch. It's that, but from a reader saying, Maury, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. I hope you're okay. Like,
exactly.
There's an accountability there.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of first time authors are afraid of, is the sharing part. Like, I don't want to be vulnerable. Because my wife has even said, this Tuesday, this week, I wrote an article. I wrote a blog post about us because it's our wedding anniversary. Yeah. And I let her read it before. I said, I want you to read it before I release it.
Good idea.
She read it. She said, this is so nice and it's so sweet. And I said, thank you. And then I walked off, and she said, but I do not like putting ourselves out there like that. And I was like, social media. I said, we're already out there. But I think sharing that, I don't know, writing is so, it's so hard to explain from an author's viewpoint. Like, some people might say, well, why are you writing? The reason why I write is to get my thoughts out, and frankly, to share my memories or my feelings, or like just then when I shared that about my son tapping me on the shoulder, other people might be like, well, that's a little too personal. Why are you sharing that? It's because it made me feel good. And and like you said, when I was smiling about talking about the wrestling, writing is doing what I did about writing about wrestling, except you're just doing it on paper.
And for your son in the future to read that story you just shared, and for him to realize the impact a son can have on a father, right? Like, he's going to cherish that one day if he has access to it. Right. And if we as parents and writers and creative people don't share these things, I think we might have an impact in the future where he's going to cherish knowing he might forget about that whole thing. Like it didn't even happen to him. But the fact that you brought it up and that it meant something to you in that moment shows something about him as a person, even in his young, early days, that's going to show up later for him as an adult. And to be able to point a point in time where that moment happened, there's a piece of that, your son, that's now exposing himself, that this is who his character is. And he can go back and go, now I know that moment that where that happened for me.
Well, and you bring up legacy. I mean, legacy is a huge, like, driving force, I guess, in my life. Just not so much as a father, but just as a person in general. My grandparents were married for well over 50. Well, both sets of my grandparents were actually. Two of my grandparents are still there. Both of them are 92, and they've been married for 60 something years. My other grandparents who have passed away, they were also married for well over 50 years. And my pawpaw always told me, leave the world better than you find it.
Right.
And I tell my kids all the time about how they act out in public and stuff like that. I said, it's our name. Where I grew up, our family name meant we grew up in a very small community. So my last name of Wood meant something. Like when somebody asked when my wife and I started dating, she told somebody, I'm dating Maury Wood. And an older person said, those Woods are good people.
Yeah.
And it's because of that legacy, you build that. And like you just said, the smallest thing as a writer, you might think, well, this isn't that big of a deal. You need to write it down. I truly believe if you've got an idea, you're never going to know. Yes, you could sit there and go, well, this isn't going to work. Well, you're not going to know if you, and that's the thing that hangs with me as a writer sometimes. It's the uncertainty of, or like this might have happened to you before. I will read something from somebody and it will blow up. And after I read it, I'm like, dadgummit, that's exactly what I was going to write. And I didn't do it.
Right.
I mean, and I think going back to and it might just be me getting older. I've run out of flips to give and I'm like, I'm going to write it, dadgummit. Yeah. And I'm doing as much as I can. Cause like you said, in this day and age, I want my kids, they want me to write about them. Like they will come up to me and say, have you written a story about me yet? And I'm like, yes, I've written a story about you. And then they go, can I read it? And that's a gift that didn't cost me anything, but they will come up to me and hug me and say, oh, that was so good. Thank you, Daddy. And it's just the feeling it's an awesome. And like legacy, I've heard one time, a lot of people talk about legacy after I'm gone. Well, I'm gone and after I'm gone. Legacy starts now.
Right.
Like it's like it's interesting that you did that when you said this pinpoint. It's like throwing a rock in a body of water. That rock hits and then that ripple just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I don't want my rock to hit after I'm gone. I want my rock to hit now and then the ripple keep going and going and going. And I 100% agree with you as far as writing, making an impact. My grandmother, when I turned 18, handwrote me a letter that was like 12 pages long. And it was just, shoot, why am I getting so emotional? It was basically, here's some stuff you need to know. And she told me things like, when you get married, you're going to want to have what mom and daddy have at the beginning. You're not going to get it. You've got to work for that.
Yeah.
All this stuff she told me. And when she passed away, we came back from the funeral and I was putting my clothes up and I saw that envelope and I went, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about that. And I opened that envelope up and read it again and cried like a baby. But I've got that. And I can give that to my kids. I mean, and for her to have handwritten a 12-page letter to me, on a funny note, I brought it up to my brothers because I thought maybe they got a letter when they turned 18. They didn't get a letter. So that it didn't go over well, but they were like, well, can we at least read yours? But I was the first grandchild. But that was something like triggering a memory. I completely forgot about until now when you talked about legacy and writing. She wasn't an author, but she put her thoughts on paper that she thought I needed to know because she knew she wasn't going to be here forever. So, I mean, I think that's saying something.
So there's a book right there for you, Maury. Take the letter, have her words, and then you expand on and reflect on it from your perspective as a reader of the letter. And just, there's 12 chapters right there.
That would be a good one.
Come on. Right?
That'd be a good idea.
Even if it's just for your kids. It doesn't have to go out into the world. It can be just a private book for yourself. They have a copy, right? You have one letter, or you can have 5 books based on the letter, right? It's another, because, again, you're such a creative person. You ooze creativity.
Yeah.
Your brain is always spinning, and you have a very kind heart. And I think your motivation is always, everything I've talked to you from and every interaction I've had with you, there's just a purity to your intentions. You're not here to misdirect us and misguide us and use this for your own gain. You're here to help people, and you just want to share your message. So I just think anybody listening to this going, I'm feeling like I'm like Maury in my life. I just think all of us have this potential even to do something small, but take that thing that's super important to us. There's a reason why it's important to us, and then put it out in the world without any expectation of a refund, like a reward or something coming back to you. It's just, I feel compelled to share this story. What happens with it, happens with it.
Yep. I tell my kids all the time, I can only control myself. That's become like my mantra. And I said, once you start, my son went on a trip with church this past week, and he came back and said, a lot of the stuff you've been telling me is starting to make sense. And I said, did you stop caring what people think? And he said, it's not so much stopping to care what people think, but I'm getting more comfortable with myself. And I said, well, then you're in the right direction. And I said, I wish I was go back and tell my 16-year-old self, it gets better. And I've always said that, like I always hear these things, like when people say, if you could go back in time, I'd be like, well, first of all, no, I am perfectly fine where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But if I could go back and tell my younger self, I would say, I would say, not so much don't care as much, but it's not as big of a deal as you might think it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciate what all you say. I try to be genuine with people, and I don't want to say pride myself, but like if someone asks for help, I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah. Like I have told my wife and I have said when we speak to our kids, I try my best not to sugarcoat things, because I don't want them to come back to me and say, you said this and this is what happened. And I have told my kids, this is going to be hard, or like, this is going to hurt. Like when I've had to pull splinters and things like that. And when people say it's not going to hurt that bad. Yeah, it's going to hurt. I'm going to pull. I'm like, here's a rag, bite on this. This is going to hurt.
Yeah.
So I think I just try my best to help people as much as I can, because like you're helping me. I did not know this was going to turn into a Maury, you need to write a book conversation. But you've kind of given me a little bit of confidence to be like, you know what? That wouldn't be that bad of an idea. So, I mean, I appreciate that. But yeah, I just, writing to me is it's so cathartic. Like my wife will even say, "Do you want to go write or something? You seem kind of tense." And I'm like, "I think I'm gonna go jot some stuff down just to get it out." But yeah, I mean, it's like anything else you try to do in life. I mean, it's not going to be start it today and tomorrow you're making the tour of the world showing whatever it is you're writing. It doesn't work that way.
If we jump back to the letter that you were given, you've already said that your siblings are interested in what was written. So you've already got 2 readers right there that are already interested in your book. So
they'd want a free copy.
Of course.
They wouldn't buy one.
All right, yeah. But you already got a built-in audience, right? They're already waiting for that. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I could talk to you all day. So what we'll do is we'll kind of put a pin in it, like we said before, put a pin in it. We'll have you come back. We'll talk Dad Space. We'll talk about, I know you love podcasting. There's so much we could talk about together. So we'll link all the episodes together in a nice little package so people can jump from this to other episodes when you come join me elsewhere. But again, for people who want to connect with you, your Substack, where do we go? We'll have links in the show notes, but where do we go?
It is gritandwit.substack.com. It's I think you can actually Google Grit and Wit now. I talked to someone about possibly a website, but they were like, Substack's fine. And that's what going back to waving the Substack flag. There's really no need to have if you're pushing people towards your blog or your writing, you can even do videos on Substack if you wanted. So, I mean, that gritandwit.substack.com. And then if you want to email me, it's themaurywood@gmail.com.
Okay, good. We'll have all that linked in the show notes. Again, great suggestions for authors, Maury. I love it. And thank you for being so open to share your stories and more about your family. Congratulations in advance on the anniversary. And Dad's Father's Day is coming up. So
yes,
happy Father's Day in advance as well for that.
Thank you.
Excellent.
You too.
Everyone, all information for Maury and all of his writings. If you want to meet a very creative person who's always putting out great stuff and wants you to read more, go check out his Substack. All the information in the show notes. Maury, again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.